If you're experiencing hip pinch in your saddle, in other words, when you anchor your bridge into the carabiner and you place your weight into the saddle, that angle from the carabiner down to your hips, when you add your weight into it, it will begin to squeeze and wrap around your iliac crest or the area around your hips. If you're experiencing pressure or hot spots, anything of that nature, do you have to go out and purchase a new saddle to remedy the problem? The answer is no. As of 2023, Genesis 3D Printing has brought to the market yet again a one of its kind, the first of its kind, HPE or Hip Pinch Eliminator. And I want to take a little bit of time. I want to break this guy down. I want to go over its features, its specs, and I want to show you this thing in action. And for $42, you will be surprised at how much this guy right here can save your hips, especially on a long hunt or consecutive days of hunting all day long. The main body of the HPE is made from 7075 T9 aluminum. It resembles and functions much like a tent pole. You simply separate it by pulling it apart, and you can bend it in half and then place it in storage mode. Running from end to end is a shock cord, which is what gives the tension to hold this in place once you insert the tube into itself. At both ends of the HPE, you will notice that there are two black flexible bridge holders. This is made from a TPU material. It's very, very flexible, and it was designed to be flexible for a reason. And then, of course, on one end of those TPU holders, you'll notice that there is some flexible shock cord with a pull tab, and that's what keeps it in storage mode, but also attaches it to the bridge loops of your saddle. Now, when the HPE is fully employed, the dimensions are 15 inches wide by 1.6 inches. That's what the black rubber TPU material is, by 0.9 inches. And then in the storage position, it is only 8.5 inches long. Also, what's cool about this thing is it only weighs 3.5 ounces. It fits most bridges, and also it's made right here in the United States of America. So what's awesome about the HPE is how easy it is to deploy. Now, when you're in transport mode, again, this will just collapse, and you can take this bungee, use that shock cord and this tab, and put it in the transport mode. It's like this 8.5 inches. Then this can go into your dump pouch, this can go into your backpack, wherever, whatever you're using, probably even into your cargo pocket if you want. When you get to the tree, you get set up. If you're hunting an hour, whatever it might be, and you start to feel some squeeze, pull it out. Again, the shock cord, open it, and then this slides in very, very easily. It was late in the season, 2022, that Austin reached out to me and said, hey, I've got a new product that I'm going to release. Would you be interested in testing it for me? And I said, absolutely. I'll test product for any company. I don't care who it is. I want all companies to succeed. And so I said, yes, send it on over. And he began to share with me some of the details. This is the prototype of the production version that I have already showed you. This is what it looked like. Of course, it didn't have the shrink wrap. This is the TPU that was originally used, and you can see that stuff is just super, super flexible. Actually, I think it was too flexible for it. It just didn't work as well as this more rigid material. For 3 or 4 hunts, I forget what it was, at the end of my Pennsylvania season, I was hunting utilizing the HPE. And there's a couple things that I want to point out in regards to what to expect. Of course, when you sit in the saddle and you do not have the HPE installed, you will notice that from bridge loop to bridge loop, the distance might be 6 inches or whatever, and that varies per the size of the person in the saddle. But you can see from your carabiner down to your bridge loops, that distance is about half the distance it is when you attach the HPE. What I realized right away is that 100% the HPE will pull off the pressure on your iliac crest. It will take it off, and it really widens the whole setup. But also, when you're sitting in something, if you change the pressure, let's say right here on the top of your strap, you're going to feel the pressure somewhere, okay? If you use this and you put it on, you might notice immediate relief right on your iliac crest or something like that, but you also might notice that it begins to put more pressure on, let's say, the bottom side of your saddle or even the top. And this is where, with the HPE, you would still have to fine tune where you want your bridge loops to be and all of that stuff. You know, you'll still have to mess around with how long you want your bridge. That will change where the pressure lands. If you want a shorter bridge, that will be different than if you want the longest bridge option that you have. So again, it does 100%. When you put it on, you will notice that there's a transition or transfer of the pressure away from the wrapping of your hips down to maybe the middle of your saddle, which is good, or the bottom of your strap. And again, all you have to do to adjust that is run your bridge on your bridge loops either up and down, and you can manipulate that pressure point. Where the HPE shines the most for me personally is when I'm considering long all-day sits during the rut. This does come in handy for those shorter sits, especially if your saddle is prone to giving you some hip pinch problems and things of that nature. Not all saddles are created equally, but if you spend enough hours in said saddle, you're going to experience leg fatigue, muscle fatigue, you know, and you will get tired. So having the ability to be able to manipulate exactly where the pressure is landing on your body goes a long way. In Kansas, we go out there for 10 days. We hunt 8 days from daylight to dark, put a lot of hours in, and I hunt with multiple saddles by nature of being a YouTuber. I hunted with 13 saddles 2 years ago, 9 saddles last year. It's not necessarily just one saddle. If you put enough time in a saddle, you will experience some type of fatigue, some saddles more than others, but regardless, having the ability to take the pressure off of the squeeze that the angle from your carabiner to your bridge loops gives, to be able to manipulate that goes a long way. And for $42, I would say before I got rid of a saddle that was prone to hip pinch, I would go ahead and give this guy a shot, because as you see in some of the B-roll and even in demonstration, this thing widens the bridge loop to bridge loop by 15 inches, and that goes a long way. For me personally, my style of hunting, this saves you in those times where you're hunting daylight to dark for multiple consecutive days. One of the questions I've seen asked is, does the HPE affect shooting your bow? And the short answer is no. There's a couple things that was done that has aided in the ability to shoot your bow while you're using the HPE. The first is, we've already mentioned, these holders are created with flexible material. So if I have to draw my bow and anchor or turn really, really hard to the left or the right, you will see that these things will flex and pivot with the saddle. But as I'm sitting here, I'll put this thing back on, and I know you're not going to be able to see that. I'll put this thing back on. At no point in time did widening the saddle affect my ability to draw the bow and to shoot. Let's say it did, or let's just say maybe you have a difficult time. You can't really pivot around the tree, so then you have to put the bow right here, and of course now it's a little bit wider. In that case, all you would have to do is pull it off and let it hang there. And that's kind of the dual function of this flexible shot cord is, on one side you attach it to your bridge so it's not going anywhere, it's just hanging there, and that will allow, for whatever reason, if you think that might change, you know, the angle there. But I really don't see how it would affect all that much. And of course, I've never had to draw my bow yet in different situations to experience that in real life. But again, if it does affect, the purpose of this draw cord is so that you can just drop it right out of the way. I think long before I would go out and purchase a new saddle, because I was having problems with hip pinch, I would throw $42 at Genesis 3D Printing and see if this hip pinch eliminator could help a faulty design in said saddle. Now, even if you're not having hip pinch, this HPE has the ability to manipulate pressure. And that's one thing that I like, especially considering long hunts, daylight to dark, you know, consecutive days. I don't care what saddle you use and brand, manufacturer, whatever. If you're sitting 8 to 10 hours a day from daylight to dark or whatever it is, you will experience some type of fatigue. And so this has the ability to manipulate pressure, push your bridge loops off of your waist and your hip, and you're able to then adjust where that pressure lands at on the bottom of the strap, the middle, so on and so forth. And so it's pretty versatile. And this is probably the most anticipated accessory that has hit the market, at least for me. This, and I know that there's a couple grappling hooks that have hit the market that are pretty sweet, but $42, I don't think you can go wrong with the Genesis 3D Printing HPE. As always, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comment section below, and until next time, good luck to you.